In a trading statement issued by Telkom, the fixed line operator said that it expects to report a 40% drop in first half earnings per share due to losses incurred by its mobile business and the impairment of its investment in iWay Africa. For the 5 months ended 31 August 2011, revenues from the fixed line operations have declined. Interconnection and data revenues have declined by approximately 13% and 6% respectively, while subscription revenue has increased as a result of higher effective pricing and an increase in customer premises device rentals.
Telkom's got a market cap of 17.3 billion, price earnings of 10, a dividend yield of 4.4. Gerbrand, let's start with you. We always talk about South African companies who go to Australia and come back with their tail between their legs, and there's also a bit of a trend of South African companies going into Africa, Telkom in particular. The multi-links which they're extracting their way out of at the moment is still going to cost them some money. The iWay Africa, which was assets they bought out of MWeb and the like, write-downs there, just struggling to grow beyond our border, struggling within the borders.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's something on telecom space or something. We saw Altec as well struggling in East African operations, etc. So it looks like it's difficult, and there's a bit of competition out there as well. So yeah, write-downs on that side, and we know the multi-link, I think, is another 670 odd million. That's going to be another impairment if they get it sold to the Nigerian business. Very difficult time for them, but probably a stock that you should have been aware of after the Vodacom went X out of it, because it's fixed line is just a difficult business. It's a dying business worldwide.
Vodacom was their cash cow. I mean, Vodacom on a dividend yield of 5%, and they're on 4.4. Vodacom maybe helped paper over some of the cracks.
Yeah, certainly. I think that was their great asset which they sold or tried to unlock value for shareholders. I don't know what was the reasoning behind it, but probably shareholder value creation, hopefully. So far it's worked on the Vodacom side, but just a fixed line is a difficult business. We know that they're struggling with their Haita mobile operations to get that off of ground as well. I think there's 888,000 customers now, which is probably half prepaid and half on contracts. So very difficult time, and if you look at the historic P, that still suggests okay, but if you take into consideration the earnings for the first half is now going to drop to about R1.40 a share, it's trading at 31, you're probably going to look at closer Ps to 12, 13, although it's dropped 5% in price today.
Russell, just staying on the sale of multi-links in Nigeria, what were some of the reasons that they didn't take off in the Nigerian market? And secondly, do you anticipate any other red flags or blockages to the sale coming through? I mean, they initially tried to sell multi-links to Visa for 52 million, but that was blocked by a lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it, I think they've gone into Nigeria. They didn't know the business there. They tried a fixed line going into the cell phone network. There's obviously going to be huge costs. Like Gerbrand said, I think he listed every single reason under the sun why not to be in Telkom at the moment. And I can definitely agree with him. You know, revenues, long distance revenues down by about 9%, international traffic revenues down. It just looks a dismal picture.
In a sense, they're in the old space. Copper in the ground it really is last century's technology. I mean, if you want to put stuff in the ground, you want to put fiber optic, and we're moving to mobile, particularly in Africa.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at people using a lot more Skype these days, so, guys like Telkom are really going to come under a lot of pressure.
But this conversation is becoming so dreary, gentlemen. What can Telkom actually do? Are we looking to get a cash investment from the government? Are we going to reshuffle the board? How can we turn this around? Is there any hope? Gerbrand.
Well, probably concentrate on on the data side. I think there's some hope for them, and then as well on their fixed line. It's probably never going to be a nice investment, but I think all of these other avenues that they're trying, they are failing at the moment in it. If you look back, the right decision would have probably been just to drive out the cash cow, pay nice dividends, and do what you do well. Although it's maturity phase, declining markets, etc., you would have had a lifespan of another 20 years, etc. But they're now spending their cash at new ventures that's not working. So it's probably going to.
And that fixed line's not a bad. I mean, they go to the big corporates. I mean, if you look at the top 200 stocks in the JSE, they're all probably paying massive phone bills every month to Telkom. Yeah, you can move some of that around, some Neotel, some MTN and the like, but that really was their core focus of their business. What they did well, it might have been last century's technology. Kind of it worked for them. It made them some money.
It certainly did, and it used to be a great dividend payer as well. It still is. I just don't think it's going to be in the future. But it's a very difficult place where they find themselves, because I mean it's probably not one of the nicest things to be a board member, and you know you're going to have a declining market share all the time. So it's very difficult for from the outside to say what they should do. I think they're trying on the mobile side, but I think they're trying the wrong market. We know that penetration in South Africa is north of 100% already. So maybe if they'd done it in a different country, maybe it would have been looking a bit more interesting, etc. But you got great competition in South Africa with Vodacom, that they even unbundled themselves. So it's very difficult to get a growing market share in a fully penetrated market as well.
Oliver, is I mean, there are 882 subscribers, their ARPUs are moving up. They're talking about it becoming profitable in 2014. It's cost them a lot of money, but the mobile networks do. They've been very aggressive. And oddly enough, I can get a 8R internet access cheaper than I can my fixed line from Telkom, with a whole lot more capacity to it. But as to Gerbrand's point, not only is it a market with a plus 100% penetration, it is a humongously competitive market, and a market that I see that, frankly, prices are being driven down, particularly data prices. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you know, it's a big case there is too little too late, I think. And I think they, you know, even though they have tried it, I think they really are going to battle. You know, MTN, Vodacom just really have that market share to the T at the moment.
They launched Telkom Business Mobile in September for South African corporates to have the option basically of routing the call via fixed or mobiles, and that is essentially is meant to reduce the cost. Has there been much uptake for Telkom Business Mobile? Are corporates taking up the service interested?
No, I think we'll have to wait for the annual statements themselves, or the interim statements themselves, because I don't think you saw much in the trading statement on that. But it would be interesting to see if they do get some revenue from that side and customer base, but they're probably going to hurt some of the smaller players in the market with routers, etc. I think of the likes of Vox Telecoms and Hughes and so forth. So it's going to. I also don't think that market is that big for making a huge difference in a Telkom's life.
Oliver, do you concur?
Yeah,
is that your opinion
definitely.
of Telkom Business Mobile?
Yes, most definitely.
But they do have some awesome specials at the moment in that space.
You're making lots of calls there, Simon.
Which is probably not very good for them. I want to come, I mean, back to Our Way Africa, Oliver, which is, as I said, they're trying to take internet into Africa, brilliant idea. But again, maybe they're going wireless, which is great. But internet in Africa is going through the mobile device, and they're trying to do it via wireless, but non-mobile. But it's not the GSM or the CDMA. And had some issues there, done some write-downs, but surely, I mean, ultimately, in time, internet access is going to become ubiquitous across the continent. As Gerbrand said, we saw from Altec, tough in East Africa, but if we jump forward 5 years?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they might get it right, but at the moment, it just looks pretty dire. I think, really, they need to focus on what they know.
And that comes back to copper in the ground.
Exactly.
And is it personalities? Pinky Mohole, new CEO in place, who came with a good reputation, and a lot of people who know her, and in the industry, people like Duncan McLeod, who operate in that space, said, you know, that she was the right choice for CEO. I suppose a difficult job coming in. I mean, she's having to retrench staff, having to pull back on costs.
Yeah, look, I think the previous successors to her as well has struggled, because, I mean, they come into a very difficult organisation. I think the other person, I think Hedberg from Cell C, was previously with Telkom. They were saying that was the right person for the job as well. He's now gone to Altec again. So I think it's a very difficult space to fill that.
Well, Telkom shares are down more than 13% this year alone. Today, they lost 5.12% of their value. And relative to MTN and Vodacom, they lost 3.71%, Vodacom 2.64%. Gerbrand, would you say that this is a hot stock or not? It doesn't sound like it's hot at all.
No, I just think if you're looking for a stock, you're not looking just for a dividend play, although you might get it here if they do focus in the right areas, etc. But you need some growth stories in your stock picks, or maybe a cyclical stock that can go better on normalized earnings, etc. So it's very difficult to just pile money into Telkom at this stage. I mean, there's no clear strategy what's going to work going forward for them. Until they do turn around the business, I think you're going to struggle to get investors investing their money into Telkom shares.
Sounding like it's not hot then for you,
No.
Gerbrand. Oliver, how do you feel about Telkom?
40% drop in first half headline earnings, definitely not hot for me.
Not hot for Oliver. Simon, you are taking advantage of the specials, making lots and lots of calls. Do you think it's a hot stock or not?
I don't, but I like Gerbrand's point that perhaps what they should do, and I just a lot of respect for Pinky Mahole, that maybe they should go back to what they do, which is a copper in the ground. It's a little bit boring, and trade it a little more carefully. They've got ATAR, see what they can do with it. They got Our Way Africa, but then as an investor, I'm going to say I want to start seeing some numbers flow from those first. Their core copper is great, but I want to see something coming from ATAR, from Our Way Africa, some profits flowing, some growth prospects. So as it stands right now, no thanks, not hot.
No, thank you for Simon. Thank you, gentlemen. From telephones to mining now. Platinum Exploration and Development Company Wesizwe Platinum posted a headline and diluted headline loss per share of 36.61 cents for the 6 months to end June 2011, compared to a loss of 6.52 cents per share for the first half of 2010. A comprehensive loss of 393.3 million rand was reported against a comprehensive income of 334.8 million rand for the same period in 2010.
Wesizwe's market cap 2.9 billion, negative price earnings because they're losing money, zero dividend yield because they're an explorer when they're actually starting to build a mine. They haven't yet got their mine built yet. Gerbrand, before we delve into Wesizwe Platinum, we've seen the price kind of holding up, overtaken by gold. Your take on platinum is a sort of precious metal one should be looking at over sort of a 12 or 20 month view?
Yeah, very difficult at the moment to say where the commodity prices are going to hold up in any commodity at the moment, with all the recession fears floating around at the moment.
Yeah, because we saw platinum
a week
down,
back,
what,
my answer would have been a bit different.
We went down to $700-800 in 2008-9.
Yeah, certainly. I like platinum as a precious metal and an industrial metal, so my preference would be platinum against gold. And I know you're in the same view on that.
Yeah, for sure. Give me a real metal.
Gold price has come down nicely. Platinum price unfortunately followed suit, so it's about $100 lower at 1,500 at the moment. But of course, if there's recession fears, people are probably thinking that no car is going to get sold over the next year or two, and demand's going to disappear, and you're probably going to see some pressure on some of these commodity prices a bit further down. But I think long-term wise, it's certainly a metal that you want to be invested in.
Oliver, we're seeing aggressive involvement by the Chinese consortium. They've put in $207 million of equity funding, $650 million of debt funding as well. There's been some board reshuffles as well. What is your take on the involvement of the Chinese in Wesizwe?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. You know, if you look at what I'm going to talk about later, the metrics, I think their involvement is key. But I think Wesizwe is definitely a commodity play, and like we say, there's some big threats about this platinum price, 20% down since the month of August. So, you know, there's very big concerns here at the moment. But I do like that the Chinese, they own a
40 odd, I think 45 or something. They're just under majority stake.
Yeah, just under majority.
The BE partner takes up to 51.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the Chinese make it clear they're here to stay. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Gerbrand, I mean, this was Wesizwe Platinum. I mean, they got a bankable feasibility study in 4 years, which apparently is a world record. I'll take their word on that. 2008, they're sitting with a market cap of 7 or 9 billion. There's about. They're going to go out there, they're going to raise money, etc. Everything's looking wonderful, and the bottom falls out of the world. And 3 years later, they had to sell equity massively cheap. The Chinese bought equity, also bought a debt finance. In a sense, it was just, I mean, beyond their control, terrible timing. There's some issues with the community. We can touch on those in a bit. But if they'd done it 3 years earlier, they would be sitting in a different place right now.
Yeah, certainly. But I think that just shows you that it's very, very risky to invest into exploration.
That's a junior miners, and that's the risk.
Doesn't matter what you look at. And there was a lot of hype when they listed. There was a lot of hype around platinum, and people were discounting huge earnings going forward, although they were very far away from actually producing an ounce of platinum out of their assets. So probably about too much hype. I think the share price went to 12 Rand. It's currently at about 1.70 Rand, I think. They diluted their shareholding, as you mentioned.
They doubled number of shares of issue in the last year.
That's why they, and the price where they issued it as well is a difference. That's why their headline loss has widened as well. So very difficult for these companies, and normally it's very difficult to from an exploration company to go and actually develop the mine and become a serious junior miner out there. That's very difficult. The positives out of this is that they've actually got the finance in place, so forth and so forth. So I think
and they do have a good asset.
Yeah. Well, we don't look at these companies before they actually do produce some earnings, etc., and some revenue and so forth. But I think from an interesting point of view is where it's priced now. It probably, if you are a long-term investor and you can buy a little bit and put it away in a little drawer in your study, then maybe it's something to look at. if you can trust management that that feasibility study is correct, because there's a lot of unknowns as well with feasibility studies, etc. We also know that they struggled, they had some port issues about a year back as well, which doesn't bode well for investor confidence, and that's probably why the share price is down there.
Sounds like you were bullish on the platinum price though, Gerbrand.
I think long-term wise, yes. I think short-term wise, anything can happen in the markets. I mean, we're producing about 75% of the world's platinum, and Zimbabwe is producing a little bit as well. So guys are struggling to get finance for shafts, etc., the junior miners, etc. So I think long-term wise, certainly, if you look at the Chinese consumers starting to pick up on vehicle sales, they're now the biggest vehicle consumer in the world. And if you look at batteries, etc., that's going to come out of platinum over the long term. And palladium as well. So I'm bullish on the price long term, but I mean anything can happen in the next 6 months. There's
6 minutes, dude. 6 minutes.
6 minutes as well.
You haven't got 6 months.
Who knows about it? But we're long-term investors, so I'll rather carry platinum than I would gold, because there's actually a use for it.
And long term is Wesizwe a hot stock then for you?
No.
Not? Right. Oliver, how do you feel about Wesizwe? Hot or not?
Yeah, also, I mean, once again, that decline in the platinum price is of great concern. I think there's better platinum stocks out there. I know Implates has been absolutely destroyed the last couple of months. Obviously, you know, they got the whole Zimbabwe issue there. So, not for me, not Wesizwe, no.
Oh, two not hots. Simon, how do you feel about Wesizwe Platinum?
If I was a gambling man, which I'm not. To Gerbrand's point, if you know Wesizwe's got a good asset, bankability, feasibility study aside, etc. If you want to put a little bit and this, you want yourself a highly speculative stock that you're going to put away for 5 or 10 years and see what happens, it could be this one. If you're widows and orphans, or you don't want risk, or you want to be able to liquidate or something, stay far away from it. So it's hot if you want some speculation that might take time to mature. Otherwise, no.
Hot for speculators, not hot for Simon overall.